going live.
Okay.
We're going live. Okay. Okay, we're now streaming live. Welcome. And first off, happy Passover. Welcome to our network's first live Facebook Live event. Yay. Today's event is called Agents Get Listings with Trust. And first, before we get started, I would like to hand over to our Madam President, Sherry Sada.
Hello, everybody. So nice to have you here, and it's a pleasure to have Rozita with us today. First of all, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to all of our sponsors. We appreciate your support and your involvement to our network. And thank you, thank you, thank you. And now I'm going to go to our awesome governing board. I would like you to meet them. First of all, we go to Miss President-elect Taunee, English.
Hi.
Janine, our secretary.
Hi.
Christopher Wookie, director of programs.
Good morning.
Neely Nathan, director of membership.
Well, let me unmute her.
And Bree Henderson, our treasurer.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Bree.
Well, thank you, Madam President. I guess we'll get started. So I would like to begin first that I love and admire Rosie. She has the most practical tools and tips which she will share with us today that I have never heard from any other estate planning attorney. My favorite quote that I use all the time to convince my clients and dear beloved parents, who I call Medea and Larry David, to get a trust is, probate is a lawsuit you file against yourself with your own money for the benefit of creditors. And I usually end with, none of us are getting out of here alive, so get a trust already. So, what's going to happen is, after Rosie has educated us on content that we can use to share with our clients, I will tell you how to get listings with trust. So before we get started, let me share a little bit about our featured guest. Rozita Yacobi, aka Rosie, is the founder of Yacobi Law APC, practicing in the greater Los Angeles area. Her office is located in Beverly Hills. She attended Southwestern School of Law and immediately went into practice serving the community. As a woman dedicated to her family and 3 children, she's all woman in that, she understands the importance of planning for your family's future and building your own legacy. She's a trusted advisor to her clients because she builds meaningful relationships. Rosie started her legal career as an immigration and estate planning attorney. However, as she gained greater insight into the traditional model of estate planning, she realized there was a big gap which exists in the service of estate planning and the needs of minor children. Rosie began to cover this gap with her expertise in estate and tax planning, asset protection, and kids protection planning. Rosie believes that the foundations of a successful family unit are care, love, and selflessness. She takes pride in providing her clients with a sense of comfort and security that comes along with having an effective and comprehensive plan in place. So with no further ado, let's welcome Rosie.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself, which Taunee explained. I've been in practice for more than 20 years, and I really am passionate about the work that I do. My focus is on keeping families out of court and away from conflict. And some of that comes from education. When people are informed, they'll take steps to take care of things for their loved ones. Some of it we do for us during our lifetime. Some of it we just do for our loved ones. And I'll dive into that as we go in. Can you guys see my screen? Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes. Not now.
No.
Ah.
Let me see. Are you sharing?
Press share screen.
Okay, let's try that. You want to try it again?
Let me try. Can you see
I think it's come. It started. Yep, we see it now.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So what I'll do is I'll dive in and slowly guide you through some of it. Some of the things are just to get you to think about what are the stuff that your clients may be dealing with or you personally may have to address. So most people, when they think of estate planning, they think, oh, it's just a set of documents. What does it really mean? They hear of it in the background. Oh, they need estate planning. What does it mean? Is it just a set of documents? What are these documents going to do for me? But for me, what I've noticed is peace of mind that comes when they have not just their documents, but a plan in place for now, for 10 years from now, and when they pass away. Sorry. We're dealing with families. Most of my concentration is with families. I do have some single clients, but the majority are families, many with minor kids or young adults. And the type of families that I serve are the traditional families, the single families, the blended families. And for the LGBTQ, it's a little bit more different than the traditional because they need additional steps to prevent families from coming in and preventing them from acting as a unit. I help protect clients for their residential and commercial real estate. And something that most people don't even think about is your healthcare wishes and what comes up. Many years ago, Terry Shibo, I know some people remember her, some don't. She goes into a coma and she couldn't come out of the coma for a long, long time. And it ended up actually going to the Supreme Court, and the President Bush had to get involved, sign a decree and have the court address it. And I think within 15 days of the court ordering that she needs to be off the machines, they took her off. And it was a battle between her husband and her parents. They wanted to keep her around, but she was literally kept on machines for over 15 years. And if you don't want that, that's something at a minimum, it's a healthcare directive and power of attorney. And what some of the work that I do is figuring out what my clients need, how I can help them, not just their health, not just their finances, overall, how I can protect their assets for today and come, many years down the line. And something that it doesn't affect everybody, but it affects most. And it's how to avoid unnecessary estate or gift taxes that most people don't know about. Right now, thankfully, each person can pass assets up to $11.580 million to their loved ones and not pay estate taxes. But anything above that gets taxed at about 40%. And how many, can you guys, with a show of hands, tell me how many of you have a plan in place at all? Okay, perfect. And when was the last time you reviewed it? Many people don't. And once they set it up, they leave it alone. I require my clients to meet with me at a minimum every 3 years. But the ones that have a lot of changes, I like for them to meet with me once a year.
And that's important, Rosie, because I just spoke to my aunt and she didn't put her property back into her trust again after she refied. So yeah. I told her I'll be talking with you and we'll talk later about it. But that's a good point right there. I called her, she called me and I said, well, I'm doing this trust Zoom call. And I said, by the way, did you make sure you put your property back in your trust? And she goes, oh.
It's very common. People set up a trust, they put their home in the trust, then they refinance 5 years down the line. And most often, I would say 80% of the time, they forget to put it back in the trust. So what happens? Probate is triggered. And let me discuss something. I'm going to dive in briefly into what happens when you don't have a plan at all. The state has a plan for you. It's based on legally what you have. And this is the quote that Taunee likes to use. You end up in probate or guardianship when you have minor kids. It's a lawsuit you file against yourself with your own money for the benefit of your creditors. So basically, the state, if you don't have anything in place, the court gets involved. And the court gets involved, and it's the fees that are collected by the court, by the attorney, and everything, it's mandated by code. It's nothing anybody can do anything about. And it's expensive and it's extremely public. If you want to go see anybody's file, in the courthouse. You can walk in and see what was filed, what assets they have, where they lived, how many pieces of property they had, where their bank accounts are, because everything gets listed in probate. And then it leaves your loved ones at risk. I've seen situations where, these young kids get approached because they inherited something. So in college or somewhere, they get approached with somebody. It's premeditated. They go in and see what these kids have, and they go after them and pitch them business ideas or anything to get the money out of their hands. And it has happened to a relative of mine. She inherited, she's my husband's nephew's wife. She had inherited at age of 19, she inherited more than $2.5 million. By the time she was, before she turned 25, she didn't have anything left. So these are things that I discuss and educate my clients as to what to do to avoid. And this is a basic average what the probate fees are for somebody who has less than $1 million. They have a home and it goes by the fair market value. They have a bank account, a business, life insurance. Total value of their estate is less than $850. It's around $850, and the probate costs are about $42,500. $42,500. And it's like, how do you want your loved ones to receive your assets? Do you want them to go through probate? Do you want them through estate taxes, deal with creditors, or you want them to go through a process we'll discuss later on? And then for those families that have minor kids, because 2 of my kids are still minors, this is really important for me. Let's say, for example, I've had situations where I heard somebody went out to dinner, a husband and wife, and didn't make it home. What happens to
Okay,
their
by the way, guys, this is one of the practical tools that I was bragging about Rosie, okay? Sorry.
really, no, thank you. It's really, really important. The kids are with a babysitter. They don't know what to do. The police come and take them. And then Child Protective Services gets involved. And if you didn't leave a plan, then, the court gets involved. You're not going to like it. A judge makes a decision, and whoever looks good on paper, it could be your brother-in-law that looks good on paper. He has a job, he has a family and everything, but you don't know that his kids are doing drugs. Do you want your kids in that person's home? These are things that worry me, and I've seen situations like that. What can we do to prevent that? So if you have minor kids, even just a plain will, the court will get involved. But if you want to avoid that, then I set up a kids protection plan, provide my clients with a family emergency card. They know what they need to do, and instructions. We have babysitter instructions, all these other detailed instructions as to what they need to do to avoid it. And then another one, and this came on my radar a few years ago when my daughter went to college. Anybody over 18, at a minimum, they need a healthcare directive, durable power of attorney, and a HIPAA. Without it, somebody over 18, it happened to my friend's son. He went to college, he got sick, and the roommates called the mom, said, he's sick, he's in the hospital, we don't know what's going on. So she thought maybe he partied too much, drank too much. She had no idea what's going on. And she called the hospital, they wouldn't talk to her because he was over 18. He was not in a coma, but he wasn't well enough to communicate. Because of that, they wouldn't talk to her. So without she called me, we called the pediatrician, we got everybody involved, and we realized we can't, because of privacy laws, get any information. She got on a plane, went there. His mom said, her son said, no, this is my mom, please. He communicated well enough. But what I learned is anybody who's young and is ready to head out to college, they need to get these documents in place. If you look on the bottom, durable financial power of attorney, a HIPAA waiver, and medical power of attorney, which is in California, we call it healthcare directive. And something that I really, really am a strong believer in, we want to make sure that kids under 26 don't inherit money. Their frontal cortex hasn't fully developed, and they'll make really, really bad decisions. So, and we can protect against inheritance, being vulnerable to divorce, lawsuit, or if they, let's say, an 18-year-old gets a few $1,000,000. Are they going to go to college? Are they going to rise up to who they're meant to be? And that's lost. And then I help families with special needs. Do you guys know any families that have special needs children?
Yes,
You
I
do?
work with a lot of families with children with autism.
Perfect. Like they need the planning they need besides just a standard trust to protect their home or the rest of their assets. It's to make sure that their child is taken care of. So court's not getting involved in making decisions like that. And one of the things that I keep telling families, provide enough financial resources. It's your responsibility. If you have special needs, make sure you put enough life insurance to cover anything that you need. And consider inflation and taxes. Sorry, let me finish this thought. Make sure they cover, especially families with minor kids that have special needs. Their kids are going to grow. They're going to need more money. Some is covered by the government, but to the extent the government's not going to cover, you want to set up enough to cover them. So I tell my clients usually get some type of life insurance or set up a separate account to fund this special needs trust. And then this is very special to me. It's making sure pets are taken care of. I had a situation where one of the ladies that I know, her boyfriends died in a car accident. Really tragic. He was 26, 27. So the mom immediately, she was so upset. The mom of the boyfriend was so upset. She sent the dog to a kill shelter at first. The girlfriend went, got the dog back. Then the mom realized the only thing she has left of her son is the dog. They ended up in court for several years over this dog. So I tell people, you know, if you care about your pet, some do, some leave millions of dollars. There are people who just want to make sure somebody's taking care of their dog and leave a little bit of money to take care of their dog. And then, do you own guns? Do you have clients who own guns? Yeah.
Yes, I'm one of them actually.
Okay. And this one, you have to be careful with that. Like if you read in the middle, when you have inherit an IRA and you make a mistake, it's a tax problem. You deal with it with the IRS. But if you make a mistake and somebody else has your gun that shouldn't be having it, you could be facing felony charges. So that's really important for somebody who has a gun to make sure that they have a gun trust for their estate plan.
Can you explain more about that?
Yeah, it depends on the type of gun. There are two different categories. But I have some clients that used to be in the military. And for them particularly, they do have guns and it's in a safe, it's locked away. But I said, okay, if something happens to you and you don't come home, like I have a husband and wife, they're both ex-military and they have 2 minor kids. I said, okay, if you don't come home, the wife said, I don't want the guns. I'm done with the military. Husband says, no, I want my brother to have the gun. I'm like, okay, your brother, is he licensed to have the gun? Can you start the process of getting him licensed so he can be, your wife can be the trustee. She won't be using it, but she can pass the ownership of the gun to your brother. Because if your brother gets, or let's say you want your brother to have it, without a gun, he owns it, he doesn't have the licenses and uses it, he's going to face felony charges. So we want to avoid that. And this is something that a lot of real estate individuals I've noticed that they use it. They tell their clients own property jointly or designate a beneficiary or signing. These are the common estate planning techniques that for the long run do not work. And I'll explain that a little bit further down.
Okay.
So ready for answers?
Ready for answers.
Okay, so what is estate planning overall? It's asset protection. For some people, it's charitable giving, transferring of wealth to the next generation, and dealing with taxes. We're dealing with all of that, not just a set of documents again. And how much protection each one of your clients are going to need, it depends on their minor kids. Do they have minor kids? Do they have adult kids? What are their concerns for their healthcare? And when we're dealing with residential and commercial real estate, how much protection do they need? Because when you own real estate in California, it just in the US, 80 million lawsuits are filed each year. California, we have 78% of lawsuits in the nation, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, we have more lawsuits than anybody else. And there's two kinds of liability that you're dealing with when you own real estate. And this is something that really applies to your guests. There's the inside liability, risk to property, such as injuries to tenants, guests, damages to tenants' property. And then you have outside liability, risk unrelated to the property, such as if you get a car accident and somebody gets a judgment, they're going to be able to go after that asset because they're going to have a judgment, a business transaction, a business injury, or malpractice, they can go after it. So this is something that applies to you and many of your clients. And this, again, I'm going back to how should your clients hold title. Joint tenancy ensures probate upon the death of the second one. Surviving joint tenant will pay capital gains. The one that I commonly see is community property or community property with right of survivorship. And I know many of your clients will have it on that basis, correct?
Right.
Okay. So in terms of how I can protect your home, it's different than what I do with your commercial. We get liability insurance like an umbrella policy, put it in a LLC frequently. If you have multiple properties and the value of each property is over $1 million, I'll separate them out.
Why?
Because let's say somebody gets hurt in one of your buildings and you have 2 properties in that LLC. Somebody got hurt in here, because they're combined under one entity, they can literally put a lien on both if they get a judgment. I had a client who, one of the tenants fell on the steps. She was wearing flip-flops, mind you.
Yeah.
Very heavy set lady. She fell on the steps and injured her knee. So she sued my clients for over $2 million.
Whoa.
They had an umbrella policy it wasn't quite enough. So they wanted to go after, but what we had done for her, we had separated all her assets and they finally settled, but it took a while. They kept trying to go after the other assets, but we had set it up in 4 different LLCs. So the tenant couldn't go after the other LLCs because they're different entities. It was great.
Yeah.
And with some of my more advanced clients, sometimes we set up Delaware or Nevada asset protection trusts. But for most people in California, you may not have this issue. It's complicated, it's done, but it depends on the amount of assets and how many assets and so forth that they have.
So going back to that, why would people set up their LLCs in Delaware or Nevada? What's the advantages of that?
There's some tax advantages actually for Nevada. And it also removes it one more level away from you. But the accounting of it, your accountant really needs to know how to handle it. Otherwise you can get in trouble with that.
Wookie had a question.
Yeah, when you separated them, did you do that after she was getting sued? Because from your conversation, it sounded that you did it like after she was sued, you separated the accounts, but you did that prior.
We do it way before. As soon as they see me, I'll say, okay, this one's worth $1 million. It needs more than $1 million, separate LLC. Because LLCs annually, you have to pay the franchise tax board about $800 a month, a year.
A year.
Sorry, not a month, per year. You also have accounting that's done separately. And I tell my clients, you have to have a separate bank account. It's a little bit more of a hassle, but it's a protection that without it, the other assets would have been on the line for her.
Yeah, because one of my clients, all of their buildings, they have separate. And then I had a client that actually has all of her buildings as one. No. And yeah, she shouldn't.
No.
Agreed. But I can't even explain her, but.
So you know what I want you to do?
She's no longer a client though, but.
Oh, okay.
That could explain why too.
Yeah.
Someone who's very stuck in their ways, that's just like, no, this is how it's always been. This is how it's going to be. she's probably the person that, wrote that will decades ago and think that's going to be sufficient when she's gone.
Yeah, and it's not.
2 years of, conversations with like telling her that she should do this. She's like, you haven't lived here long enough. And she's an attorney herself. And she believes in the way the system was set up. Not that it's evolved, but it has. Yeah.
Taunee knows a really good probate attorney. He makes a lot of money handling probate matters.
All horn.
Yeah, and it's great. For him, it's great. But for your loved ones, especially like right now, the courts are closed. What are you going to do? You need to have access to the funds in the account to, let's say, pay for the burial. You need to have access to the account to pay the property taxes. What are you going to do now? Sherry?
Rosita, why not having a corporation, S corporation instead of LLC? Because the corporations are more protected than LLCs.
Not really. They're the same. In terms of real estate, they're the same. I have clients that have set up and that we get involved with the real estate attorney, depending on the situation and what they have. Are they managing all the tenants in their building and stuff? Depending on what's required, we'll set it up in an S corporation, but the majority are in LLCs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, and Sherry, also regarding LLCs, LLCs are great for real estate, to put real estate inside, because you can interchange the owners of that. That's another reason why LLCs are more flexible for that. Whereas S Corp is more so when you provide services, like if you had a property management proponent to that, then you do an S Corp. But LLCs it allows you more flexibility to get rid of, owners or managers and et cetera, real easy, which you can't really do when you're dealing with an S Corp.
Thank you.
So some asset protection basics, again, real estate is a hot asset and hot assets should be segregated. And again, through an LLC, again, I mentioned this earlier, so you need a separate federal tax ID number. You have to deal with the corporate formalities, just handle it the same way. And if commingling occurs, just like in a marriage situation where you have separate property and you commingle it, it's the same thing. If you have a corporation or an LLC and you commingle it, they can pierce the corporate veil, because they call it like a veil. Your LLC and your corporation are a veil that protect you from liability, and you're going to lose it if you commingle. These are the stuff that Taunee just mentioned. LLCs can either be member managed or manager managed. You can have a manager do it. And the only thing that I always tell my clients that it's like a corporation. It's a formality. It's its own entity. Make sure you treat it as such and handle it that way. I've had clients that own LLCs and they kind of mix everything together between one LLC to another. And I tell them, if you don't keep that formality of the separation and you have a lawsuit coming in, like in the situation of my client, she was very good at keeping things separately. But if she wouldn't have been, that tenant that fell could have gone after the other properties. And title insurance is something I was telling everybody. Rachel's not here, but I always tell people to go and get title insurance, even if they're refinancing or anything, just to make sure their title is clear. And who else wants to protect their inheritance completely? I set up the stuff that I set up, or especially I can do it when the kids are not involved in a relationship or are married. I require like prenups before they get married in the trust. I require certain things to avoid having the inheritance get lost in a divorce or a lawsuit. And the only foolproof way to avoid court, it's a fully funded trust. I tell people so many of my, I get to review trust where they have the trust, the document looks amazing, but their assets are not in the trust. If the assets are not in a trust, to me, it's useless. The assets not being held under the trust, bank accounts, it's fine. I can transfer them in if it's under 150,000. But the rest of it is going to end up in probate, despite the fact that they weren't planning on going through probate. And now estate taxes, as you can see throughout the years from 17, 18, 19, 20, it's gone up quite a lot. The only thing is they said at the end of 2015, December 31st, 2015, it's all going to go back. 2025. They don't know, but the law that has set up that we can pass our assets up to 11,580 per person. So it's doubled for a couple. That's going to go away in 2025. We don't know how much. I don't think it's going to go down significantly, but keep that in the back of your mind for your clients whose estates are over that amount. For the most part here, we're okay, but I've had a few clients that are over that threshold. So it's like for them, I have to figure out how to pay for the estate taxes. So their kids won't have to sell the property. For example, I have a couple that are lovely, but their real estate holdings are over $35 million. So 22, a little over 22 is going to go estate tax free, but approximately 13, 14 of it is going to get taxed. So they have to come up with about $4 or $5 million just to pay for estate taxes when the kids take over. So getting enough life insurance, figuring and calculating that. So many with my high net worth clients, we actually meet with their accountant to figure out what they're going to need and what we can do to plan ahead. And obviously real estate keeps going up. So the planning's a little unpredictable. And then have you guys heard of the State Department of Unclaimed Property?
Yes, I have. Please explain though.
Sherry, have you heard of them?
Yes.
Okay. So a lot of clients, what I notice as they get older, especially the ones that have a lot of different accounts, they forget their accounts and their accounts end up in state unclaimed property. And their loved ones don't know these accounts exist. So something that I do, just in California, we have over 8 billion. The clients that work with me, we have an asset spreadsheet as part of their trust. So they know every single account that they have. It's very helpful for them. And I had one client that sat in my office, we were filling it up. And she's like, I think I have a few other accounts. I said, okay, let me know, we'll add it in. She called me a week later. She had two accounts. One had 250,000, the other one 150. And she had completely forgotten about those accounts.
Wow.
So if I wouldn't have had her start looking for things, what would have happened to that 400,000?
Does it stay with the state?
It goes to the state and it sits there for many, many years. At some point it disappears. But that's what happens.
Most of the time.
Yeah. So it's like I tell my clients every year, I need you, after you file your taxes, update your asset spreadsheet, send it to me. And then something that I really, really enjoy doing is I like to do legacy interviews. And what I do with that is I have a camera technician that comes in and videotapes my clients. I get their stories, where they came from, what values they want to share with their kids. You know, and these are the things that I find the most meaningful besides the paperwork. You know, like I'm an immigrant. I came from Iran. My kids know that, but they don't know what I went through to get here, what I've done to accomplish. They hear some of it, but obviously by the time I have grandkids, they're not going to know any of this. And I want my grandkids to see me when I'm a little younger. You know, so the goal is for me to set up a library, not just for myself, but for my clients, where every few years we videotape them and they add it to their library for their loved ones.
That is really sweet.
It's the most meaningful part, but we frequently need a box of tissue. I don't know, for some reason or another, I need it sometimes my clients or we both need it. So we trade the box of tissues as I'm standing behind the camera. Yeah. So one of the things that I pride myself on, I don't do the typical experience. The typical experience, you get a set of documents, they send you home. You never see that attorney. I've seen so many cases like that. They'll bring something to me. I have one I'm working on right now. The attorney set up a trust and a will for them, but they don't have a durable power of attorney. They don't have a healthcare directive. And I specifically said, did an attorney create this for you? Apparently the attorney did, but just gave them a minimum and didn't give them the rest of the stuff. A durable power of attorney comes into effect when, let's say, you're incapacitated, you're in the hospital, or you're not able, Alzheimer's, who knows? You're not able to handle your stuff, they step in, and I've seen it in effect. It's really critical. They step in and take care of your finances. They pay for your HOA dues. They pay for your mortgage payments. They make all this stuff flow until you come out of the hospital. I had a client who was in the hospital for over a year. And
Whoa.
she's fine, she's home. But she had an infection. She went into a coma. It was traumatic, and I didn't think she's gonna make it, and she made it. She's back home. But during that year, she had a healthcare agent that made sure the doctors are on the ball. She had the person that was her financial agent through the durable power of attorney that paid for all her bills and everything, made sure her insurance stayed in place, her health insurance. Imagine you're in the hospital, you don't make the payment, they'll cancel your insurance. What's going to happen then? The person had money in their account, their agent just made the payments. I had to actually walk down to the bank with the agent to show them all the documents, because the banker didn't know how to handle it. So I just said, no problem. I went down, it was at BFA in my building. I went down and guided the banker to call the back legal office to put it through. So I've seen it firsthand.
Rosie, we had a question from Claudia. She
Okay.
wants to know when you transfer the property into LLC, would it get reassessed?
Not then, no. It gets reassessed after somebody passes away.
But okay, let's say that the property is owned by you and your husband, right? And now you want to transfer it into the LLC. Would it get assessed then?
No.
Okay.
No. What you do is, because you remain the owners of the LLC, so you transfer it over to the LLC. And in the trust documents, we don't go in and restructure the LLC. What we do is we assign the interest that the people had in the property, in the LLC, to the trust. So the shareholders of the LLC are going to be the trust.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And something that I really pride myself on, it's the fact that I built relationships with my clients. I don't take 100 clients at a time. I take very few clients at a time. I get to know them. I get to know their families and get to really, really understand what's behind it, what's motivating them. And what's important to one person is not necessarily important for the others. I've had clients that want to make sure that their kids inherit the assets over long term and they don't lose it to a divorce or lawsuit or anything. And I've had clients that say, based on, they'll say, I don't want to tell them what to do from the grave. They can have it at this age, But I always tell clients, if you want to have your kids inherit, at a minimum, you want to make sure they're 26. I personally prefer over 40. Because by the age of 40, they've gone through the divorces. They're not driving like maniacs, talking about bad accidents. They may make bad, strange business decisions, but usually by 40, they're settled. So at 40, I'm like, okay, you can inherit it at this point, But if they want asset protection, I can do it for the surviving spouse. I can do it for the kids. It's overall something that's incredible, that's helpful. And I tell my clients, you're not doing this for yourself. You're doing it for your loved ones. Because by the time your trust comes into effect, let's say not even before the passing, let's say during your incapacity, you're not aware of what is going on. You want to make it as easy as possible for your loved ones to take care of you financially and health. And then when you pass, you want to make sure everything's laid out properly. So it reduces the amount of conflict that comes up. I've seen over and over again where that's when the bickering starts. Somebody passes away, all of a sudden, all the childhood hurt that they had comes out, and conflict after conflict. And it can take years to resolve. But if you have a proper plan in place and you have family meetings with your clients, I invite my clients to come in. It's usually around Christmas when their kids are in town, they're adult kids. And we sit and have a conversation. This is how the trust is set up. This is what our expectations are. And this is what we're going to be doing. We get everybody on the same page. And if I see a kid that's greedy, that's going to cause problems, we'll set up additional protection in there for them. Okay.
Can you give an example of that?
Yeah, I had one client that was lovely. One of the most amazing and memorable, actually, legacy interviews I had with him, the way he was talking about his wife and stuff. But he told me off camera, he said, my third child is not the one that works. He expects the other two to take care of him. The other two are financially secure. The third one just grew up not being a very productive member of the society and just expects for everybody to take care of him. He said, I want to make sure everything gets divided a third down the line, third. Nothing more, nothing less, a third. Everybody's entitled to 1/3, and I want to make sure. And sure enough, when he passed away, God rest his soul, the third one started digging. And I said, listen, estate planning, I set up things on a flat fee basis. Trust administration, I've learned that I cannot do on a flat fee basis because I don't know what I'm walking into.
Can you explain what trust administration is real quick?
Sure. After somebody passes away, we have trust administration, meaning how we transfer the assets from the deceased into either the trust to keep it for their lifetime or pass it the assets directly to the kids.
Okay.
In this particular situation, the son started to give me a hard time. And I said, listen, trust administration, I charge on an hourly basis. What you're asking for does not make sense, but I would be happy to charge a trust, my hourly basis. And this is what my hourly basis is. After that, he calmed down. I had another beneficiary one time ask for the mom's electric toothbrush, the bowl that sat on her nightstand, like making really these, the mom had passed several months ago. Everything was given away. She was just trying to bother the trustee. And that was painful to see. And I said, these are things, I can buy all of you guys new electric toothbrushes for what you'll pay me for an hour. So please let it go. And it does help. It makes them sometimes, not always, stop.
Rose, we have a question from Melody. She wants to know, is trust administration required?
Yes. Trust administration is required because what happens is somebody passes away. Sometimes the trustees are capable of handling it on their own. They'll work with an accountant, but for the most part, the will needs to be lodged with the court. Nobody does anything with it. And then they transfer the assets to the beneficiaries. But when you work with an attorney, I make sure I get signed waivers that they've received the money, that they've looked at the bank account so they don't turn around and sue the trustee later down the line. That's the one thing that I always tell people, pick the person as the trustee, somebody who can really handle things and be detail oriented or be willing to work with an attorney effectively to transfer your assets from you to your beneficiaries. Okay. And one of the things I do pride myself on is that the plan will work when your family will need it. And that's the one thing I see over and over again where things are set up, but they weren't planned out properly. They didn't execute it. They didn't keep in touch with their attorney to make sure that the plan will work when it's needed. Now, I've seen a lot of do-it-yourself online that comes in, or things like I mentioned earlier with the client that has the will and the trust, but doesn't have power of attorney and healthcare directive. There's certain things I want to make sure none of my clients have to deal with. None of my clients do, actually, for that matter. And keeping the assets out of court, keeping everything very private. You want to make sure your beneficiaries are inheriting things, and not everybody knows what they inherited. Nobody needs to know. And if they have minor kids, that's the one thing, as having a parent being a parent with minor kids, I'm very, very passionate about that. Making sure the kids are completely covered. They don't have to go to Child Protective Services. And the people you want will take care of them. Nobody replaces you. I know that. Nobody will replace me. Not even my sister shares every single value that I have, but she'll be able to take care of my kids the way I want it. And I have instructions as to what I want. And I don't address just financial assets. Passing down these legacy interviews that go beyond the paperwork are such beautiful things that when somebody's gone, you don't have it anymore. And I've had, it came to me when my dad passed away several years ago. We were looking through some DVDs, and, I see him at a party dancing. I see him at, like different events, but on a social event on camera. I don't have a recording of my dad sharing where he came from. During his funeral, so many people came up to me and shared all these beautiful things he had done for them. I had no idea. He had done so much more for so many people that I had no idea. And it was beautiful. So sharing that with my children, like my dad passed away several years ago. My youngest barely remembers him. If I would have had a video, he would have been able to capture some of my dad's values for him. And I think that's really important. Let's see. Ready to protect your family and have peace of mind? So again, as I mentioned, I get everybody financially organized on a flat fee and making sure that clients, there's no surprises. They can call me, they can ask me questions and know that the plan will work when it's needed. To me, that's really important. It's useless having a set of plans that doesn't work. And for the people that are attending today, I would be happy to schedule a planning session. It's an hour and a half, and I would be happy to do that. But I want you to send an email to my assistant saying you attended this event, and she'll go ahead and put you on my calendar without charging you for that planning session.
So Rosie, in the chat box, can you give me the email for her so I can post it?
Sure. It's elizabeth@yacobilaw.com.
Sorry.
So,
Sorry. You're always prepared. I'm so sorry.
no worries. Thank you for asking. So basically, it's the planning session and for the attendees for today.
Yay.
I'd be happy to extend a $250 towards any plan that they decide to have. Okay. And let me see, are there any other questions?
I'm looking. If you have any question, please post it in your Facebook comments. And a question for you, Rosie, is can you go over the 4 forms people need to have? Like, for instance, before they get a trust started, like the power of attorney, the different types of power of attorneys, for instance?
Right. So you have the financial power of attorney, which is called durable power of attorney, that you nominate somebody to take care of your finances. You need the healthcare directive. There's another one called the HIPAA waiver, and these two work together. Without the HIPAA waiver, because of privacy laws, healthcare directives don't work. So you need to have the healthcare directive and the HIPAA, the durable power of attorney. And for some situations, I also set up a dementia form.
Oh, yes.
So that one's helpful in case they have advanced dementia to not be force-fed. Now, an option, if the assets that your client's assets are under 150,000, they can just go forward with a will. They don't need a trust. Anybody's assets were collectively over $150,000, it ends up in probate. So you do need a trust.
So a question for Melody. She wants to know, do you take care of filing the will at the county recorder's office?
After somebody passes away, we file it with the court.
Okay. And by the way, Rachel Robbins said you are the best, and she's been on the call.
Say hi to her.
Okay. So I'm going to get started. Thank you so much, Rosie. That was awesome.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna get started with my portion about how to get listings with trust.
Yes, please.
Okay, so let me see about, we'll stop sharing your screen for now.
I'm trying to exit. Oh, this is my office. And
There we go.
You got it?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, so how do you get listings with trust? First off, when I'm working with a buyer and we're close to closing escrow, I explain to them that they need to place their newest asset into a trust in order to be part of their estate planning and also for asset protection. And then I will refer them to someone like Rosie, but I always do 3 referrals. And I will refer them to Rosie, for instance, who I work with and who most importantly knows what language to use to include the appointment of me, the listing agent, into the trust they prepare. And so since me and the buyers have spent quite a bit of time together, I would say, now in the event that you should need to sell your house, and don't forget, they don't have to die or anything like that for me to sell their home. What I'm putting in there is that when they need to sell their home, I'm gonna be appointed to be their listing agent. So let's say they need to sell it to downsize or upsize or divorce or bankruptcy, I'm listed as their listing agent. Or if, they pass away, I'm listed as their listing agent in that. And what I normally tell them is that, who else would sell this home for the maximum amount of money? I know this home because I just been through the whole entire process with you on this home. We did the home inspection. I know everything about this home. Do you not trust me to sell this home for the maximum amount that's worth? It's pretty, and so they tend to say, yeah, and so that's one thing. Now this time right now, since we can't do any cold calling or prospecting, things like that, this is the best time for you to go back into your database and look at all your clients. Run a property profile report and see which of your clients have their homes in a trust. And at the top, when you run the property profile, you will see if it's in a trust, go say trust or say trustee on it as the owner. And if it doesn't say that, what you also want to do is scroll down to the mortgage history, because, just like we spoke about earlier, sometimes when they refinance the property, right, they forget to put it back in the trust. So the mortgage history or the transaction history, you will see if it was in a trust originally or not. Then get on the phone with them, right? And I call up just like I did with my aunt, and say, hey, did you remember to put your home back in the trust? And that's when she told me, no, she didn't. Then I go and quote my favorite quote of Rosie's. And then I explain, how expensive it is for it to go to probate and how public all her information will be, versus just put it back in the trust or put it in trust, and this is what I explain to my parents too. I always remind them, none of us are getting out of here alive. You're going to die. So you need to get a trust, and so with my aunt, so far, most of my clients been great about including me in their trust because they do trust me as one of their trusted advisors. And this is the key too, and Rosie can talk more about this, is that as real estate professionals, now you get to be part of their trusted advisor team in relation not just to selling their homes, but for any of their properties, when you're able to provide them with this type of information, because you're now helping them strategize their estate planning. And let's see. And so, Rose, you want to talk more about how you've seen real estate professionals?
Yeah.
Trusted advisor?
Yeah, it's very key. What you just mentioned is the real estate advisor has seen the home. They know what's happening in the home. When somebody passes away, it's like figuring out what's the next step. The person that sold them the home will be the best person that would be able to sell it. I always tell them, who was the person that sold the home to your parents? Is that person still around? If not, do they have somebody that they set up after themselves? Because I've seen situations where the kids come and they're like, no, I want to have my own people do the work. And the people they hire don't know what they're doing. Regretfully.
Yeah. And another thing too, to add to that too, is that, or add more to it, you now also can, expand your CRM, because when you're talking to your clients, you want to ask them, do you know if your parents' home is in a trust? and because that's a little bit more urgent, because, odds are they will leave this planet before their kids will. So you pretty much want to, also remind them about, ask their parents if they have their house in a trust. Or better yet, what I do is I ask for the parent's address, and then I research it, and then I call them back and say, hey, your parents' home is not in a trust. Same thing with their siblings too. If they want to give me the address, I get the address, then I look it up, I run a property search on it, and I call them back saying, your parents, your sister and brother, their home's not in a trust. You may want to suggest they get a trust. And then if they want more information about that, we do a three-way. We do a conference call. And I'll explain more about, the costs of probate and, how bad probate is. And then I give them 3 real estate, estate planning referrals. So that's another way you can expand, your CRM and get more listings. Do we have any questions from anyone back in the audience? I'm looking. Sherry, Wookie, Nilly, Janine, do you have anything you want to add?
Well, Rosita was so great. She covered everything. She went through detail, I've been listening to other trustee attorneys, but she was just fantastic. And she explained every little detail. Now we know exactly what's happening, and you have the right person here because she knows exactly what she's doing, Thank you, Rosita.
Thank
It
you.
was very clear and very organized, and it really is just a step-by-step process, and it gets very confusing when people don't frame it that way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wookie, do you have anything?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to go to my clients who have, multiple buildings and make sure that they have, because in LA, any building is more than $1 million. So I will definitely make sure that take that knowledge with me and let people know. So make sure that they have it done for the future.
Mhm.
Oh,
So
yeah.
all your information.
Yeah, and if your clients are resistant to having LLCs, because I have clients that are resistant, they just don't want to deal with more accounting or more having separate bank accounts. I tell them go get a really high umbrella policy. And if you can, get a different umbrella policy on each building. That's another way to handle it.
Yeah, I mean, when you have that many buildings anyways, it shouldn't be that difficult to want to have a separate bank account and separate your finances.
Right.
I did one of my clients, a tenant accidentally backed into a child and didn't kill the, this is a bad story, but kill him, but hurt the child. But that lady sued, the owner, even though the owner has nothing to do with it, right? The tenant ran over another tenant's kid and took, almost wiped her out because of that. Because no matter what, an owner's 50% liable if it happens on the property. So, and that when they market how much the price is, being that child was, very young, probably 2, 3, 4, they think of the long term of the child's life of what they could have been or whatever. So that client learned to separate things to not ever have that happen again.
So to repeat the question, Wookie had asked, about, putting the different commercial buildings into different LLCs and the importance of that. And he just brought up,
reasons to why you should definitely do that. Because one thing could happen on one building and it could take you out for all of your buildings if you do not have your finances separated.
Exactly.
I hope we answered your question, Stacy, on that. Nelly, do you have anything to add or ask?
Oh, no.
Okay. Well, Wookie, I'm looking for.
Facebook to see if anyone has any questions.
Well, Anna said, dang, Wookie, you took it there.
Hey.
But overall, though, looks like Rosie, yeah, wonderful information. It's the overall compliments we're getting. Now you're a rock star.
Thank you. Thank you.
May I take this opportunity, if you're done with the meeting?
Yes.
May I take this opportunity to go over our strategic partners and mention their company?
Okay, hold on. Let's see, can I share my screen here? Let's share my screen. see. Share screen. Where'd you go? Hold on, I just had it. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
No?
No? Still no?
Bree says absolutely. Super informative.
Okay, screen one. Okay, now you can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Okay.
beautiful.
Yay!
Okay,
So I would like to start with our diamond strategic partner, Greater Los Angeles Realtors, Optimist Seismic, and Visual Open House. And then we have our Ruby, which is statewide escrow. And then we have our Topaz Strategic Partners, the MLS, My NHD, T2 Financial, Termigon, Corner Escrow, Allstate Insurance, and Glen Oaks Escrow. Thank you for being there for us.
thank you. And by the way, if I can make sure I figure this out again, I'd like to also do a shout out to our District Vice President, Anna Lancaster, because of her Canva training yesterday. We were able to learn all this stuff and have our background. So thank you,
Yeah.
Miss Anna Lancaster, for that. That was a very informative meeting. So thank you for that. Stop share there. And I'm checking. Wookie, do you see any more questions?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, we'd like to thank you for participating with us in our first Facebook Live event. And please remember to reach out to Rosie for your free consultation or the gifts she, have for you, because she is awesome. She really is. And she knows how to really break down all the legalese in layman terms for your clients. And she's very compassionate and very empathetic. So she's easy to talk to really get them to get their trust and everything in order. So please do reach out to her. And
Maybe have her phone number, please.
310-276-1128. And you can get our information also on our website, which is yacobilaw.com.
Thank you so much, Rosita.
Thank you, Sheridan.
well, thank you all.
Bye. Bye, everybody. Stay safe. Bye.
Bye-bye.